In the previous lectures, we have studied the Calvinism and Arminianism. And now today, you would ask us, where in the Bible support Calvinism and Arminianism? So we have to find out what Bible references supporting Calvinism and Arminianism, which we will study today. Okay? I will explain to you one by one, very slowly. Now, in lecture 5, we will study Bible references supporting Calvinism. There are at least about 12 references. Okay? Now, we will see in the next lecture, I will give you Bible references supporting Arminianism. Later, you will discover that Calvinism and Arminianism are commonly exist in the Bible. And it is our concern why in the Bible there are two conflict references, contradict references. That means contradict means opposing each other references, which make us very confusing. No wonder why there are many churches and pastors and theologians who've been so confused about these two contradicting references that we will study all day today. Are you with me? Okay, are you ready for that? Now, let's hear in this lecture 5, we will see Calvinism. Okay, now those Calvinist people always, citing means always referring that Romans 8:29-30, which is Paul. Paul was a Calvinist. It says here, Paul said, God foreknew you and me, and those who foreknew later predestined, and after that called, and justified, and glorified. That's a sequence. So it clearly states that it's Calvinism. He foreknew me before I was born, foreknew and predestined me and called me, when time comes. Now you are called, now here, you are in this stage, Then justified as a righteous person, and later glorified when you die. See, this is how many sequences? Foreknew, predestined, called, justified, and glorified. And then you write down here, Paul wrote this. See, it's a tense is important, tense. Tense means the time, tense. It's not future tense. It's not a future tense. It's not a present tense. This is very significant. All these past tense, past. This is a significant. Before you were born, God foreknew you, not foreknew. In all the past, He knew you. All the past predestined you. It's foreknew. This is a past tense. Called, justified, glorified. See, He did it before you were born. This tells us, wow, it is a Calvinism. Okay? It has nothing to do with your good behavior. It's nothing to do with your fortunate, okay, your fortune. Okay? It is God's pre-designed before He even formed you. It's a Calvinism. Nothing to do with your action, who you are, how good you were, whatsoever. Now, this is the first Bible reference, Romans 8, 29, 30. Who said that? Paul said that. Okay. Now, next is, this is Jesus says. Jesus said here, John 6:37. Jesus said this, all that Father gives me, the Father gives me means Jesus, will come to me, and whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. In other words, this means that Jesus said that those who foreknew, predestined, called, will come to me as I share the gospel. Okay? The Father already had decided who will come, who will be children of God. Those Father predestined will come to me. Okay? Not everyone. Those who God predestined will come to me. And whoever comes to me, Jesus said, I will never drive them away. So all this has what meaning? Calvinism. I hope you understand this. Okay? Now, it helps you? Okay, now here. Then third is Paul said here, Paul, Colossians 3:12. He said, Paul said, therefore, as God's chosen people, he was talking to Colossian Christians. Okay, you Colossian Christians, you are, okay, not all the people in the Colossae, but very small portion of Colossians, which is you, God's chosen people. Okay, you are holy and dearly loved ones. Please clothe yourself with the compassion and kindness. You have to have a good character because you were chosen by God. Okay, therefore, you better behave nicely according to the call of our God. You got that idea? So now I'll try to explain you with the references supporting Calvinism. How many references right here now? Romans 8, John 6, Colossians 3. Now here, Paul also said in 2 Timothy 2:10, Paul said this, therefore, I endure everything for the sake of the elect. The elect means what? Chosen, elected. Elected means predestined. Okay? So Paul said, I endure my pain and agony for the sake of you, the elect. Means the chosen. The elect equals to the chosen. Got it? And Paul also said in Titus, Paul said, in his letter to Titus, his disciple, Paul himself, he said, Paul, I am a servant of God, okay? And also, I am an apostle of Jesus Christ for the faith of God elect. See? Paul said that I am elect. I am serving you, Titus, and your people, because I have chosen as a servant of God and apostle of Jesus for you, for your faith, for your spiritual edification, because you are God's elect people. Now, Jesus said here, Jesus says here in the Olivet Discourse. You know Olivet Discourse? There's an end time chapters. Chapter Matthew 24 and Matthew 25. We call it the Olivet Discourse because he made that sermon on the Mount Olive. Discourse means it's a teaching. There's a discourse means teaching. So Jesus is teaching on the Mount Olive. That is in Matthew 24 and Matthew 25. So we call these two chapters, we call it the Olivet Discourse, especially on the end time signs before his coming. Okay? We call it the Olivet Discourse. Olivet means olive mount, Mount Olive. So in other words, Mount Olive sermon of the Mount Olive, it's the same meaning. So we theologians, we just call it the Olivet Discourse, the same meaning. Okay? Over there, I frequently refer these particular verses, Matthew 24:24. This is a very important Bible reference. Jesus said this, before my coming, there will be religious pluralism occurred. Religious pluralism occurred. It said in Matthew chapter 24 and 23, one previous verse, by saying this, Hindu Christians will call their God is Christ, and Buddha people will call Buddha is their Christ. Okay? And all other religions, their religion founders called Christ. Jesus said, Christ is here, Christ is there. He said that. Before my second coming, there will be many people will claiming themselves that our religion has Christ, Buddhism has a Christ, and so on. So then he said in verse 24 here, Jesus said this, those many false Christ will occur. False Christ. Not only the false Christ, false prophets. In other words, false teachers, false pastors, false theologians will take place. They will say, Buddha is one of the Christ, And Muhammad also is one of the Christ, and Jesus is one of the Christ, and so on. They made equal Jesus as a Christian Christ, Buddha is a Buddhist Christ, and Vishnu is a Hinduist Christ, and so on. Okay? And then he said this, even the elect, he said, even the elect will fall into that false teachings. Even the elect, in other words, those who have chosen for God's children will fall into that wrong teachings. Ended up with losing their salvation. See? This one only can teach us that even you are the elect, your salvation can be cancelled. This is what Jesus said that. Okay? Even the elect, that is not 100% guarantee. Salvation is not 100% guarantee. Do you remember the last week we studied the tulip Calvinism? Remember that? The N tulip is what? P. Perseverance of the saint. Calvin was wrong. Calvin said this: once you are saved, your salvation is 100% guaranteed. That's the perseverance of the saint. But with what Jesus said here, no, it's not. Salvation can be cancelled. If you deny Jesus as only Savior, if you accept other religion also have a Savior, so all religions are the same. Eventually, when you say that as a chosen Christian, Jesus will be very angry at you. Okay? Denouncing the value of the cross and his blood. Therefore, Jesus will say, I'm going to cancel your salvation, even you are the elect. Okay? So now, elect means that's the Calvinism. But opportunity of canceling your salvation. Now, let's continue. Calvinism here. Peter was also Calvinist. Okay? Peter said that to God's elect. You see, again, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. He said, to those God's elect, let me write down this letter. And he says, then he mentioned, here, you are God's elect people, strangers in the world. In other words, you are temporal visitors in this world. Although you are God's chosen elect, but God put you in this world temporarily as temporal visitors. Okay? And those who are scattered in the Pontus, Galatia, his disciples. Okay? And Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, all those areas now, you are now scattered, but you have been chosen. Say, you have been chosen. You are God's elect, although you are scattered around, okay, regions in Turkey, okay, you are chosen people. Chosen people according to the knowledge of God, the Father through the okay, sanctifying work of the Spirit, blah, 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 and so on. My concern is that you, my disciples, scattering around because of the gospel, okay, receiving all kinds of persecutions by non-Christians, make sure you are the chosen, okay, you are the elect by God. Amen? Yeah. That was Peter's theology. So Peter was what? Calvinist. Okay? How about John? Later we'll talk about. How about Paul? He was a Calvinist. Now, here, number 8. Peter said, it's 2 Peter chapter 2, 12 and 22. Peter's understanding of those non-Christians, you are all beasts. You are not the elect. Those non-Christians, you are just like animals. Okay? We Christians, the elect, we are not animals, but you are like animals. Someday will disappear like animals. And also he said, this is a Peter's concept on non-Christians. And also, same Peter's, 2 Peter 2:17. Oh, you are here. Okay. Peter said this. Peter said those non-Christians under the Calvinistic mindset, okay, he said this. You non-Christians are well without water. Springs without water. And also mist. Mist means what? You know mist, okay? Mist driven by a storm. You know, mist means it's a fog, okay? In the morning, sometimes we find the fog, mist. But when storm comes, it disappears. That's non-Christians. Non-Christians, you are temporarily living in this world. Okay, when storm comes, you will disappear. You are just like an animal. You are just well without water and mist driven by a storm. That was a Paul's observation, his understanding on the non-Christians, unchosen people. Okay, so there, you can see Peter was a Calvinist. Okay, now number 10 here, Revelation. This is a John, and Jesus told John in Revelation. This is another important Bible references right here. Revelation chapter 13, verse 8. See, Revelation chapter 13, we studied that this is a two-beast end time, two-beast chapter. Remember two beasts? First beast is what? Illuminati. Okay? The second beast is Vatican Pope and WCC and Jesuit. Remember that? First beast is Illuminati and Freemason. Remember that? Okay? These two. Now, here, John saw that these people who obey, who follows these beasts, okay? Those who following, who believing these Illuminati teachings, Freemason teachings, and all the liberal theology led by Vatican Pope and WCC in Jesuit teachings. Now, John saw that these people who are now worshiping all these wrong guys, okay, he said this, all inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast. So all inhabitants of the world means this is what? Christians or non-Christians? Non-Christians. Non-Christians will worship and they obey, they learn from these two beast Illuminati teachings. They enjoy with Illuminati teaching, Freemasons, okay, and all liberal theology and so on. Say, all the inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast and their teachings, all whose name have not been written in the book of life. In other words, why they are worshiping those two beasts? Because their names were not written in the book of life. Book of life. Okay? From when? From the creation of the world. From the creation of the world, their names were not written in the book of life. In other words, this is a Calvinistic approach. Okay? The reason why they like Illuminati, reason why they like Pope and all this liberal theology, because their names were not written, okay, in the book of life. In other words, what? They were not chosen for God's people before even they were born. I hope you understand this. Okay? It's nothing to the good or bad, because their names were not recorded in the book of life. Because their names were recorded in the book of what? Book of death. There are two kinds of books, okay? So they were not chosen. They were not the elect even before they were born. Even before they were formed in the mother's womb. This is what it said here. Jeremiah 1:5. Jeremiah was told by God that the God was a Jehovah God, that Jesus appeared to Jeremiah. He said this is a very powerful message. Jesus said, before you formed in your mother's womb, I foreknew you. Like that. See, before our Pastor Bong, you were formed in your mother's womb, Jesus foreknew you. Okay? He foreknew Pastor Bong. Later, he will come to Korea and serving here in the AMI and so on. He foreknew you. What a powerful message. Eh? Our Pastor Maju, pastors are sitting here, listening to, and all those people who are watching these videos. Now, so Jeremiah 1:5, don't forget that. Jeremiah 1:5. Okay? This is very important. Now, one more here. Galatians 1:15. This is what Paul said. Okay, he was writing a letter to Paul. Paul was writing a letter to Galatian Christians by saying this, that now I came to realize our God, okay, who set me apart from birth and called me by his grace. In other words, that he said that when I was in my mother's womb, Paul said that, okay, I was chosen for the servant of Jesus Christ. It's interesting that later he realized this, okay? But as you know that, first 30 years of his life, he did not know, he even rebelled against the will of Jesus. Okay? However, there was a part of God's plan in his life. First 30 years, okay, he will be rebelling against the gospel of Jesus. Then when time comes at the age of 30, Jesus appeared to him and they called him. But you see here, Paul said that I came to understand God foreknew me as a servant of Jesus. And he predestined me as a servant of Jesus. However, when time comes, he called me, okay, on the way to Damascus when he was how many years old? 30 years old, and so on. But Paul, later, he all could digest God's plan and confessing that, wow, this is a Calvinistic theology. Calvin later came to understand this. He developed this in a very systematic way. That's why we call this Calvinism. But that was not created by Calvin. Okay, it was created by our Lord Jesus. Amen? So we call it theology of predestination. Theology of predestination by the sovereign power of God. Sovereign power of the God. Sovereign power of God. Okay? Not by my own plan, but it is sovereign plan of God. Okay? So we have now discussed here these biblical references supporting Calvinism. At least we have discussed how many references here? Around 12 references. So when you teach this, teach them slowly, step by step. Not try to teach everything at one time. They will be confused. So take your time, okay? I have spent about 30 minutes here, but you better spend about 2 hours. Okay? Don't try to make this short. Take your time. Now, in the next lecture, lecture 6, we will study the opposite side of Calvinism. We will see. In Jesus' name, amen.